Okay. We are in Mysore, southern India, in the yoga shala of Acharya Vijay Kumar, a teacher of Ashtanga Yoga and Ashtanga Vinyasa. Despite his young age, Vijay has been teaching Ashtanga Vinyasa for the past 20 years. Let's start discovering his path as a beginner yoga practitioner to the teacher that he is today. So Vijay, at what age did you start practicing yoga, and what exactly was your practice like in the beginning?
I think I started around 11, but as any 11-year-old would do, playfully. But I think it's in the later part of my teen, I maybe perhaps of the repetitions doing again and again, and continuing to do so, I felt an interest towards it, and that kept continuing me practicing. It's rather me practicing it, it was practicing me, we can say like that. So that practice was not an effort, because any practice would be a friction so that it may mature to become frictionless, where absolute interest would have developed, or it remains a friction and make us lose interest in it and we lose the practice also. So I'd like to say the practice practiced me because I grew interest in it, and then it's continuing. That's all.
Thank you. What were your hobbies and interests during your childhood and teens away from yoga?
I think I was a little bit into drawing. I like arts a lot, arts, architecture. But always hobbies were, even to this day, watching sunset is one of my very favorite hobby. That's all, I think.
It's a good hobby to have. And nowadays, what do you like doing in addition to teaching yoga?
I continue to watch sunset. And I like to be in the garden a lot. I like to get the thorns bite me many days just to see the flower blossom for a few moments, or admire green leaves as it is. Sometimes they get diseased because me not taking very good care of it. I like to see that also, how it changes when proper care or attention is not given to anything. And I like to work on it and see the leaves smile again, becoming green. I see gardening to be a very beautiful way, or creative non-violence, because anybody who witnesses a green leaves, any kind of negative emotions in their heart vanishes, or at least becomes forgotten for momentarily. But that is the most important part of non-violence. Ahimsa pratishthayan tatsannidhau vairatyagaha. In second chapter we have seen this. When one firmly establishes ahimsa in their vicinity, even with the people having negative emotions, are forgotten. The same thing are with the plants. When you are in the middle of this beauty, anything, not just for yourselves, anybody who comes around that beautiful plant, if they have that patience to see it, because the beauty is everywhere, one should have that patience to witness it. Naturally, all the emotions which are negative dissolves. So any practitioner or any person, not just themselves to be non-violent, they should also create an atmosphere which becomes conducive for anybody in that vicinity to be non-violent. So I like to see gardening as a way of non-violence, a creative way. So that is a part of me. Try to play with my children in their energy is a little bit part of my hobby. That's all I think.
Very nice. Is it right that your mother was your first teacher and after your brother?
My mother is my main teacher, certainly. And there is a huge influence on me from my brother as well. Yes, they are both very inspirational or influential in what I learned in Ashtanga Vinyasa.
But was it your mother that was teaching you Ashtanga?
Yep.
Oh, nice. How many teachers did you have in total, and who has been your main influence?
You mean in regard with yoga practice? Them just them two. That's all. In asanas, I learnt mainly from my mother, and my brother influenced in whichever I had troubles with. So, apart from these two, I did not have to go anywhere.
We could say that Pattabhi Jois has been one of the most famous Vinyasa yoga teachers of all time. Living most of your life in Mysore, the same city as Pattabhi Jois, how is it that you never came to practice with him?
I agree. Sri Pattabhi Jois is very responsible for the system to be practiced so widely. See, I had a plate with food which I had not finished. So I could not see at another plate or meals. So I had teachers at my place who were teaching me, and I was happy and satisfied there. So it is not like I did not want to learn from Sri Jois or something. But the thought of learning from someone else was not there at all. So I did not learn from him.
Amazing. In the past, you were practicing Ashtanga Vinyasa twice a day. What does your routine practice look like nowadays? Are you still practicing asanas, or do you practice something else?
See, any practice is like brahmacharya. Many times I have discussed brahmacharya in my classes. Brahmacharya is different at different phases of life. Even to this day, I like to call myself a brahmachari. Some of you may wonder, I'll come to the practice the same way. Brahmacharya is one of the 4 stages of a man's or woman's life, equally. In the beginning phase of life, in brahmacharya, it means only focus on studies. Brahmani charate brahmacharya. All that leads to the divine consciousness, you prepare for it, with or without interest. It's a practice. And then is the maturity time, when whether the practice has blossomed into an interest or not. You need to put a lot of effort in the beginning, but if it has become an interest, there is no effort. So brahmacharya is likewise, when you are a grihastha or family householder, it's also a brahmacharya. You have a small family, you have continued to focus on the divine, who are all conducive and supporting. Likewise, practice of asanas are also. There is a period of time until you realize asanas, you are involved in it. But any realizations should make the subject simpler. It should not make it more complicated. So I believe that interest that I was applying of 6 hours of practice in asanas every day has resulted in its beautiful way of making me realize asanas. So I do not practice with so much intensity. There is definitely a part of my day practicing asanas. But not to that hunger of discovering new, rather to maintain a proper health. That's all.
Nice. According to you, what makes a good teacher?
A good teacher. It is as wide as an ocean to answer, because each individual is so different. I do not know if it is a point to be said as a good or necessity. If we tick over all necessary things, maybe it will lead to a good teacher. I do not know. But a teacher must observe a practitioner and be welcoming, patient. Patience is necessary because not every recipe works for everybody. And not every time what you say the other person might hear. Forget hearing, listen. They might want to listen, but something in their understanding would obstruct them to listen. This should not be taken as a hurt to the ego by any teacher. Rather, it should be accepted. Yes, let them take their time to understand. If you are saying something out of your experience, because experiences never go wrong. But it doesn't mean that others' experience is wrong. So one need to have a patience and proper understanding in what they do. Then it should make them a right teacher. A good teacher or a bad teacher, a student decides.
What is the biggest challenge for you when teaching in the shala?
There is no challenge.
Each year you dedicate
No,
the
I
month.
like to add to it.
Okay.
There is no challenge, I say, because for me it's not a challenge. Might be as students for you sometimes. Because when I am with one person, I am with that person. I may not look at the other practitioner. Because I know that once I am finished with one practitioner and I see there are a few pairs of eyes waiting for me. So I know I might, as humanly as possible, not be with everybody every time. But whenever I am with anybody, I am with them. So it is not challenging to me at all. So I am absolutely present there. But for a student, if they are waiting for some help, their patience is their challenge. If they are patient enough, if they can accept me as I am, then that should be easy for them as well.
Each year you dedicate the month of February to doing a teacher training course. You must have many requests to train with you in this month, yet you normally only select a small group. How do you decide whether to approve a person to undertake your TTC?
TTC. See, I believe I cannot train a teacher. But I need to know a student to give my experience. Without knowing a student or the student knowing me, it's not like a course you will apply and you get the paper, because I believe no paper can make a teacher. One need to be able to receive my experience and I need to be able to give my experience. In both ways, the channel should be open. For this, some time must have been spent within the practitioner and the teacher. In that way, I educate, they learn. There is this beautiful relationship. There is openness, a sincerity, no seriousness. If that has to flow, there must be a connection already before this course happens. And I like to keep the group small, not too big. So these are all the parameters I see before I accept a practitioner to go through the course.
Very nice. In Hatha Yoga, there's no day off during the moon days. There doesn't appear to be any scientific evidence that moon cycles affect somehow the performance of the human body. In fact, professional sports athletes and athletes in general do not have a rest day on the full moon or new moon. So why should vinyasa practitioners be the exception and rest on the moon days?
See, I think no other sports, even if you call asanas as a sport, even if you just look for a moment, No other sports use the body in its full maximum movements of every part of the body as yoga asanas does. In Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, there is a flow by breath, movement along with the breathing. In Purusha Sukta, it says, Chandrama manaso jatah, the moon influences the mind. So this cycle of full moon and new moon has huge influence on our minds. So these are the days when you have been constantly moving to make the mind still quiet. All asana practitioners are practicing to become still, steady. So these are the days of observations. It's not like everybody who will practice will get injured. But there is a possibility also, especially when you know that if there is in the back of your mind that somebody says of a higher authority, this is not right to practice in that day. And when you have trust in them, it's already in your mind, okay, what I am doing is not right. So to do anything with a feeling of not rightness is wrong already. So these are the days of observation, not for moments. So moon days are avoided to practice or learn any new things. Hence, also in Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, we follow the same. Observe what you have learned, introspect, and let it embrace you as a whole. Because without introspection, any action done repeatedly is useless. For example, the second chapter, first verse, tapas swadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yoga. Tapas is to be active, to be involved, when interest is severe into the action, when the heart is put into the act, which is making it an art. But how do you put the heart into the act if it is only an action? It is introspection, swadhyaya. So these observation times make the act an art because it makes our heart connect to it. So tapas by itself is rajas, rajoguna. Swadhyaya purifies it and makes it sattvic. So all these days of observation makes our abhyasa, practice, more sattvic. To make our practice to be not just body conscious, go beyond.
Beautiful. The third limb of Ashtanga Yoga, asana, is often understood as the physical postures that we practice on the mat. Is this a correct interpretation? And what exactly is asana, the third limb of Ashtanga?
Apart from Hatha Yoga Pradipika and Gheranda Samhita, no other yogic texts speak about many asanas, what we practice. Asana is to be able to sit and observe consistently, continuously. Like Bhagavad Gita mentions, samam kaya shiro grivam, kaya, the torso, shira, head, griva, neck, all in a line, so that none of the voluntary group of organs are interrupted. Sampreksha nasikagram swam, observe towards the tip of the nose, not to look at the nose. That is not the purpose. When the eyesight is turned towards the nose, all the other senses also turn inward. And then focus on yunjan evam sadatmanam, focus on the self. Brahma Sutra mentions asinat sambhavat. Those who have mastered a posture can master the self because they can go beyond the body consciousness. Yoga Sutra says prayatna shaithilyananda samapattibhyam. When prayatna, efforts, shaithilya, loosens out, means when there are no efforts, ananta samapattibhyam, absolute steadiness is attained. But Hatha Yoga starts differently. In Hatha Yoga Pradipika it says, first asanam prathamangatvat, first are asanas, which gives sthairyancha angalagam. which gives body strength and ability to move easily. What we should understand is not everybody can sit down. Sitting down is to tolerate oneself. For instance, you may want to sit down in a quiet time, let's say at least a pranayama. What most of us experience when you sit for pranayama, it is the hardest thing to sit, not breathing alone. Forget breathing, forget regulate of the nostrils. The hardest part is to sit down. Why? Because we cannot tolerate ourselves. There are too many things that are acting in the mind where we have not made peace with, which does not allow us to be present. So, there is a problem in the cycle of energy in the body and mind. So, that is how asanas are classified into two parts, arogya sadhana, adhyatma sadhana. Arogya, to gain health, we practice asanas, all these asanas. Adhyatma sadhana, any one posture you accept and you practice to sit in it for long periods. You learn to tolerate yourselves by and by, because practice is beauty. It makes you get involved. Third limb of asana, although in Ashtanga only speaks about sitting down, but if one does not have an energy cycle which is smoothly flowing, because asanas are energy training also, they cannot sit down. So both are necessary. Both are necessary.
Okay, let's go beyond asana. Can you explain what yoga is? I mean, an easy explanation that a non-yoga practitioner can understand and grasp.
Yoga is about being present. If a practitioner is always present, forget practitioner. If a person is always present, they are in yoga. It's becoming the present moment. Yoga means union. It's a complex word to say. But the simplest explanation is being present. When you are in union in anything, it means you are present, nothing more. The easiest way, also what Patanjali starts is atha yoga anushasanam. Now, in this auspicious present moment, let's begin. Because it cannot be influenced by the past or the future. If these two are acting, which is very easy and common for every individual, to go back and forward, rather be in the present, it is where practice is necessary, effort. But when one has become present, the practice has loosened out. It has become a gift, a present, a yoga. So yoga is becoming present, or being present is yoga.
Okay. What is spirituality to you, and do you have a spiritual guide?
Spirituality is being present. Spiritual guide. I like to see only Krishna as my spiritual guide. But I have masters who have guided me to be towards that consciousness. Lakshmi Shavadani, Surya Prakash, they have all instructed me certain sounds into me that makes me acknowledge the spirituality easily. So basically, spirituality means being present. There is nothing beyond being present in spirituality. We can call it as beyond enlightenment. If there is something, it's being present. That's all. Because in enlightenment, you are beyond the body consciousness. You are working on something in a higher level mentally. But after that, what you will do? You come back to reality, you become present. So that is also spiritual. Spiritual guide is every individual's interests, to whom their heart swells towards. if your heart says, this is the source that I want to look up to, and I want to become that. Tattvamasi. What is Tattvamasi? When in that presence, when I am no longer me, when I say, I am absolutely you, so you have become me. Such a beauty. That is Tattvamasi, spirituality. So, it depends on each individual's interest. So, my heart swells towards Krishna. So, whenever my heart's saying Krishna, when I am no longer existing with all my identifications, Krishna has to become me. But different individuals will have their own choices, and it's all correct.
It seems many people reach yoga, the state of union, without apparently practicing a particular yoga path or any form of yoga method. Listening to their words, it would seem clear that they have expanded their consciousness and felt this union with everything. It can happen in the case of, say, extreme sports athletes, or for instance, scientists thinking deeply about life and nature, Albert Einstein to give an example. So it would appear that asana, what we do on the mat, is actually not an integral part of reaching the state of yoga. This idea is reinforced by the fact that asana is not mentioned in either the Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. With this being said, what in your opinion is really important in order to reach the state of yoga?
I say asanas are very important. I am a representative of asana teacher if I say. I say asanas are very important also because how many people in sports, you can example, who have reached or who have this thought of going beyond the body or mind, who have thought to go beyond the accomplishments. How many Einsteins do we have? But almost all yoga asana practitioners have interest towards higher consciousness. At least let's say 75%. They have a thought about it. They want to make themselves better in whatever possible way. In the sense, how do they make themselves better? By simplifying themselves. Simplification is the practice of yoga. Because that is what leads to the happiness that already exists in a man. Whether it is an Einstein or an extreme sports personality, if they are acknowledging yoga even without doing yoga, it means they have acknowledged the simplicity that is already existing in them. But we cannot make examples of such many. But we can have many examples of yoga practitioners who have simplified themselves. So asanas is like a beautiful start for any individual to go beyond the body. At the same time, not being competitive. So what is there to be? Because almost all sports personalities, if they have to reach to their extreme level, if we have to call what you say, they have gone through this competitiveness. A phase of stressed mind. Only some go beyond, but some or many would have broken down. But nobody in yoga asanas will compete, or at least should compete. Because the competition is within the good and bad we have within us. And how what wins depends on what we feed more into our thoughts. So these thoughts are learned by every practitioner. So yoga asanas are a very beautiful way to start. Although this don't need to be the absolute way or the only way, but we cannot neglect it is the most used way of practicing to reach the state of yoga. In any yoga class that you will go around the world, asanas are the beginning. One might wonder why asanas are taught in any yoga classes we go. Because asanas are the way to go beyond the body consciousness. Whenever you are practicing, something is possible, something is not possible, it changes again, impossible becomes possible. Over a period of time, you will see everything is impossible again. The body is constantly changing, it educates or it gives a platform for a practitioner to understand or realize how everything is changing, to realize it firsthand. We understand it. Understanding is different, realization is different. Our body is being our first identity. When I developed my consciousness, I started to regard myself with my body. My body being my first identity, which has led me to be a bag of identifications. Asanas guide me how to go beyond this, because sometimes we will have, not sometimes, many times we will have anger in our relationships with other people, mostly whom we love the most. We will have some negative things. But asana practitioners will learn, if body can change all the time, why not the other person altogether? So this should also guide a practitioner to make their vicinity more calmer, themselves more humbler. This may not be a possibility with an extreme sports personality. Or it may take many years for them to achieve this state of mind, whereas asana practitioner have this potential to learn from very first posture of samastiti, standing in equilibrium. So I believe asana practice are very beautiful. It can make a mind humble, embracing, and we cannot find anything fault in it.
Amazing. Year after year, the number of your students increases. Are you considering?
Are they?
Yeah. The shalas are very full now. Apart from in COVID, because we couldn't come, but we wanted to. Are you considering moving to a big shala to accommodate the growing demand of your teachings?
No. As long as the landlord provides me the shala, I don't have plans to move. So I hope I can be where I am. So I do not have any plans to move.
Okay. And for the last question, do you have any dreams of yours that you can share with us?
No dreams. I have the first answer is no dreams, because that's also being present, no?
Yeah.
Now if I reflect on it, again, no dreams.
Did you ever dream that when you first started teaching yoga that you would come to this point that you're at? You never thought about it, or it just naturally occurred?
Yeah, I never planned to do anything new. I use the same old things. But I use it every time as the first time. So it's creativity in me, or very fresh in me. That's all. So one of the practitioners sitting here, when I started in Mysore in the beginning, where the hall was only this big of the stage, 6 people would fit in. I did not plan to move there, move from there. The landlord wanted me to move. But as a divine arrangement, I got a hall which is half of this size where you are all sitting. After a couple of years, they wanted me to move. And then I got a bigger place. Again, they wanted me to move. Now I got this place. So I do not plan to move or try something new. Maybe it is something in me that I'm satisfied. But when the boundaries are pushing itself, I think it's divine arrangement. I always feel I neither give nor take. It's a divine arrangement where I give or receive. I do nothing. So if something has to manifest, it has to manifest. I don't make it.
And we just went through, a very hard few years, especially for many people, but a lot of your students could come. And during this time, did you ever have a doubt that maybe you were not going to be able to teach anymore, that you would have to do something different, or?
When I did not connect teaching online, when I did not connect to online teaching, I felt I will be more idle and more time for family, that's all. Idle in the sense, because I have divided my day, first half of my day is what I do for teaching, Second half of my day is family. I'm a very easy, simple man. That I was missing definitely, teaching part, because coming to this shala is an integral part of me. Whether it is one student or 100, doesn't matter. Coming here is something I miss if I don't come. So in lockdowns they made us stay home. So I missed being here. But otherwise I did not have a doubt that whether I will teach or not, because this is the only tool I have to survive, to flow the life of a householder. This is the only tool I have. So I would not do anything else. So I knew I would always come back to this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Very glad. Namaste.
Namaste.